I'm hoping the shift, my body's ready to shift. So typically before I started, before I shifted to 7 a.m., I was at 6 a.m. and my body would basically get me up at 4:45 every day. Well, today, because I've shifted the time to 7 p.m., I'm now getting up at 5:45. So that happened today. We'll see how it holds, but that's good. All right, so let's read the 6th stanza of the Art of Peace, and then we'll get into practice. The art of peace functions everywhere on earth in realms ranging from the vastness of space down to the tiniest plants and animals. The life force is all-pervasive and its strength boundless. The art of peace allows us to perceive and tap into that tremendous reserve of energy. After hearing that, can you tell how you feel about it? Can you tell how you think about it? Can you tell how your body kind of wants to move or not move or whatever? Do you have an internal response to the stanza? It's worth noting as we get into the practice itself. So get yourself squared away. First bell tames the mind. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Looking for the senses. Light and shadow with the eyes. That feels cool. Everything feels safe and predictable. Close the eyes. Sounds and space. Sounds and space. Notice 2 sounds. Imagine the space in between those sounds. Touch. Can you feel air anywhere? Maybe breeze, AC vent. Maybe you can feel sweat somewhere. That's touch. Taste. What does your mouth taste like? Smell. Anything showing up? Shift focus to body. Ground. What's beneath you? Just notice the ground beneath you. Your ability to assess ground is basically without limits. You can tell the difference between the cushion underneath your rear or the hardness underneath your rear. What's underneath your feet, the outside edges of your feet. Not only can you tell kind of the hardness, you can also tell the kind of predictability, not to perfection, but you can tell that you can rely on the ground beneath you. From your ground, you move to your pelvis. It's the base of the spine. You can shift your rear end a little bit. You can even kind of reach your rear end back or shift left, shift right. You can even reach down and kind of move the flesh of your buttocks and your thighs to kind of create a more grounded feel at the pelvis. And there, moving up to the core space. Core space is belly button, sides, lumbar spine region. Now you've got some massive muscles that really do a lot of work in your core. Some of them go up and down, some of them go side to side. So just think about letting everything kind of open and ease, open and ease. So if there's any tension, open it. If there's any work, ease it out. Come up to the space of the heart. So the space of the heart is surrounded by the ribs, surrounded by the lungs. There's your collarbones up front, shoulder blades in the back. Notice where your arms are. Where your arms are also going to influence where your shoulder blades are, and where your shoulder blades are going to influence where your collarbones are. Where your collarbones are going to influence where your rib cage is resting in relation to the rest of the spine. So you want to have awareness of these things. I see a lot of people that have that rounded shoulder look, kind of like that hulking kind of meathead look where everything's just rounded forward. Just be aware of that. Open up across the collarbones, across the chest. Come into the throat space. Throat space and jaw, throat space and jaw, soften jaw. Let the back of your tongue get flat and long and wide. Get to the top of your head. So the top of your head is the assessment of the top of your head and everything else. So your spine and the top of your head are part of one and the same alignment. See if you can imagine your head kind of resting on top of the structure that your spine supports. Now inhale to the form of your breath. Inhale to the form of your breath. And exhale, release that form. Keep your alignment as best as you can. Inhale as big as you possibly can. Your breath will take the form of your body. And then exhale, release that form. It's formless. There's no form to the exhale. It's the form disappearing. It's the form of the inhale, the shape of the inhale disappearing, and then repeat. So this is interplay, this constant interplay with the breath itself between this concept of form and formless, form and formless. Take it in. Notice the edge. Notice you can't get any further at one point. Breathe in, and then release that form. Now just play with that for about a minute or two. Just play with it. Just notice the form of the fullness of the inhale, what the body feels like, front, back, sides, and then the release of the formless of the exhale. The exhale just happens. You don't really have to do anything. It just happens. So play with that for a couple minutes and then we'll move on. So when's the last peak experience you remember? So this is the kind of interpretation of the stanza. The reality of what you are practicing for is that it will always be with you, like learning how to read. Once you know how to do it, you'll always know. The rest is just practice. So, peak experiences that are just transcendent. I was talking to a good buddy of mine who was an NCOIC of mine when I was in the service, and he's just a cool motherfucker. And he was telling me about how his travels before COVID took him down to Florida, and he ended up connecting with a guy who he had met at SHOT Show, which is a firearms convention. He ended up meeting up with a guy he met at SHOT Show. This guy was a Navy SEAL. It just so happened that, you know, when this guy was going by and the Navy SEAL was going by, or when the Navy SEAL was kind of able to meet him, was also a time when another Navy SEAL came in. So these three guys all get together and they just start, you know, shooting. And my guy, this guy, we'll call him Army. My Army met up with Navy SEALs, and because Army's a great shot and these two Navy SEALs are, you know, super shots, they just went into ever increasing layers of complexity with firearms, to the point where they were shooting firearms and doing it in the context of the SEALs would walk around while he was shooting. They would walk around the range. And they did this because they knew he was a good shot, so they were pressing the edge in a professional fashion. This wasn't something that, you know, just any old people will do. But anyway, they would do things like, all right, this system is going to show up and you're going to have to engage it, and there's going to be people, us, in the way of the engagement. So how are you going to handle that? And so Army basically describes to me a situation where he said by the end of the day it was super hot. He was kind of in a like a berm, like surrounded by like sand berms, and it was Florida. It was summertime. It was last summer, and he's telling me that he's having to do these shots that he's never done before, and his level of focus and concentration is such that he's able to do it, and he's like super laser focused. And he described the moment as being something like he'd never experienced before, that level of intense focus that was sustained. And I could hear him talking about it, and he began to sound like a little kid, and I was just like, oh man, you must have just loved it. And he did. He described it as one of the best days of his life. Peak experience. When I went whitewater kayaking, not to any extreme, but a beginner's level, I have these very vivid memories of going into the rapids, feeling the fullness of it, seeing the rapids coming up at me, the splash, the whoosh, and then just now I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I have these moments with my kids sometimes where they'll do something or they'll say something, and I'll kind of put my hand on their head as they're walking by, and just everything just kind of collapses in that moment to just this feeling right there. And that's what I'm talking about, peak performance, or peak experience, sorry. It's a form, right? Form is a peak performance, right? So you're performing at a peak. Peak experience is that which life just kind of affords you. There's this form and formless nature to it. It's integrated. It has relationship. And you know what Army described with Navy SEALs was that because there was such extreme kind of experience tied to performance, he had to be really, really laser focused. And we use the concept of marksmanship to teach mindfulness all the time. But the point I'm trying to make, and the point that the stanza is trying to make, is that this experience, the fullness, is always present. It's always there. And what we miss is we miss that opportunity to kind of dive into it, largely because we're not spending that much time inside the present moment as much as we're spending the time in the idea or the way it should be or blah, 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 blah. Now, Army described, how literally having life or death placed in his kind of perspective zeroed it in. Whitewater rafting, the fullness, the threat of death with the river, a raging river, that zoomed it in. But also the love of a child, zoomed it in, right? And what it means to practice is to cultivate presence. And the thing is, this stuff only takes place in the present moment. That's the thing that's tricky about it. I think I talk about that in the second or third stanza. But it only takes place in the present moment. So you're not going to get it through thinking. You can only get it through falling in. And falling into the form and formless nature of the mystery. That's a great word to describe. The mystery of creation is what you're going to get as you practice more. So today, let's put some focus on these moments. They're always there. They really are. It's typically we miss them because we're in past future analysis. Okay, we're not present. We're missing them. So if you have a peak experience, even for just a flash, right? When I see a bluebird, that's my favorite bird. When I see a bluebird, I just I dial in, and it lasts like that. That's it, right? It's not a long experience, but that's it. That's what he says when he says the vastness of space and the tiniest plants and animals. That's what that means. So, what are your questions? What are your thoughts? When's the last time you had peak experience, and what was it like? And what is that? What do you think about this notion that it's all right there, and that it's just a matter of becoming more and more attuned, or kind of like the breath, creating the form for the formless nature of it. All right, armor down. Let's see who's here. Say hi. What's up, Drew? All right, see you.